Hey folks, welcome back. I want to update you on where I've been with this goat amp here. So in the last video I told you I was going to put it in a new chassis, and I decided not to. And I did that for a reason. Number one is I wanted to try to retain as much of the nostalgic part of this amp as I could. And one of you made a comment on my last video, what's really original? The faceplate. So I thought about that and said, yeah, that's cool. So I mean, I have worked out the bugs here. And I'm going to walk through what I've done, and then I'll show you what it looks like on the scope with the audio generator, and we'll go from there. So you'll see right here that I did move the output transformer. The output transformer was originally mounted here, and I was getting some residual noise on that, so I moved it out. Doesn't really matter because it's going to be hanging in that box, so I have clearance here, no problem. I also took the tone stack. If you remember, I had the tone stack underneath. I actually moved it up top here, and I have this this Teflon-coated insulated wire, which is really good. It's RORS 2 compliant, no noise is getting in there. So I've got that done, and I've got obviously my volume knob, which I replaced, by the way. The volume pot was kind of flaky, so I replaced it. Let me flip it over on the bottom, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, taking a look from the bottom, you'll notice it's a lot neater. There's not a lot of stuff in here anymore. So I got rid of a lot of the terminal strips. There was a terminal strip here I got rid of, and I've really simplified the wiring. I've gotten rid of a lot of these little connection points that were causing me some of the noise. I've also obviously been able to shorten the connections to the output transformer because I've mounted it in a different spot. So underneath is very simplistic. Didn't really change anything. It's all looking good. So let's throw this thing up on the audio signal generator. I'll show you how I do that, and then we're going to throw it up on the scope and see what that looks like. So let me shut this off, and I'll be right back. Okay, first things first is we have to set up our dummy load. So the dummy load is basically going to simulate a speaker. And you use a resistor for that, and you can't use just like a 1-watt resistor because it'll burn up if you put anything through it, any power. So what I'm using here is an 8-ohm 200-watt dummy load resistor. It just has 2 connections. And I have 2 wires here coming off of the output transformer. I have the output transformer tapped to 8 ohms. So that's what I'm going to be using. And we're going to connect one end here, like so. And we're going to connect the other end to this wire. So essentially I have an 8-ohm speaker now connected to this unit. Okay, that's number one. You never turn an amplifier on without a speaker connected because you'll blow out the circuits generally. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect our oscilloscope. Let me show you what the oscilloscope looks like. Let's see if I can swing this around for a second without doing any damage here. So there's our oscilloscope. Let me move this out of the way. And you'll see it's a Tektronix TBS 1032. And I'm going to connect the probe right here to one end of that dummy load resistor where I connected the speaker outputs. And I'm going to connect the other end to the other side. So now I have my ground on one side and my scope on the other. Okay? So now we're just going to go over here. There's my my audio generator. I have it set to 800 hertz, and I'm actually doing 80 times 10, and I'm setting it to about 150 millivolts, and I've got it turned on. And what I'm going to do is connect it through this wire right here, which is connected to a 1/4-inch jack, and that's going to go right in the front of the amp. Okay, that's it. We're going to put the volume all the way down, and we're going to check our connections one more time, and we're going to turn it on. The amp is on. I want you to watch the scope. Now it's going to take a while for those tubes to heat up, so we've got to give that a couple of minutes, at least a minute or so. I've got the volume all the way down, and what I'm looking for is a good sine wave. All right, that's going to show me that the signal is good. Let's see if we've got anything yet. Here it comes. I've got the volume at about 3, and you'll see I've got a nice clean sine there. Let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see it. There you go. So we've got a nice clean signal. I'm at 3. Now if I start to bring this up, you should see that wave start to distort, and you're going to see it flatten on the top of the bottom. And that's what's known as breakup. So let's bring the volume up a little bit. And you see right there in the top, it's flat. All right, that's the breakup we're talking about. And that's at about 7 or 8. We're going to go all the way up. And you'll see that those signals flatten. And that's when you get distortion on an amp. So we're going to bring her back down. And we have a clean amp here. We're going to bring it down to 0. And you'll see that we're going to observe there's really no noise. And that's the other thing you got to check for, is the noise floor. Okay? So there's really nothing happening there. It's very, very quiet. Matter of fact, if we zoom in a little bit, there's nothing. It's quiet. It's dead quiet. Of course, I adjusted it, so we're going to need to change the scale a little bit. But there's our sign. There's our flattening. We crank it up. So the amp is actually behaving the way we want it to. So that's good. Right? So the amp is in good shape, and it's working. So for those of you that didn't want me to redo the chassis, you were right. I admit it. And our amp is now in good shape. So let's turn this off a minute. We'll connect the guitar to it and see what it sounds like. And I'll also connect the Jensen speaker to it. Be right back. Okay, we've got our speaker connected. We're going to turn her on. I'm going to give her a moment to warm up. All right, let's see. You got to remember that speaker's not in a cabinet or anything. It's just sitting there in the open air. It's got to be in a cabinet. It'll sound a lot better. Let's turn the tone down on the guitar a little bit so it's not as ringy. See that bass? Turn the bass down a little bit. There's a little who. Anyway, you get the idea. So we've got an amp, and it can crank in volume. I only have it up on right now about 2. Let's see what happens when we go up a little bit. We're up to about the halfway mark. It's plenty loud, trust me. You can't tell in the video. So here we are. There's treble out of there. A little halfway on the treble. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount our meter in the front, and I'll come back and show you that before we wrap the vid. Be right back. Okay, I have the meter temporarily wired in with gator wires. I do have to change the value of the resistor in there. I think it's a little too high. I don't need to do that on camera though. So we're going to turn the amp on. I'm going to give it a minute to warm up. Make sure our volume is all the way down. Okay, let's see what we got. That's on about 3. Let's go up to halfway. Okay, so you can see it works. Again, I'm going to definitely change that resistor. It's an old resistor anyway. And then I'll permanently mount the meter. Because if I put this thing at high volume, it's going to peg, guaranteed. I think if I even do a bar chord at halfway, there it is. So that's the plan, guys. So the amp is alive. Next video, I promise, will be the last one. It's going to be mounting it in the cabinet. And I think I told you guys that I was concerned about ventilation. Well, I found an AC-powered cooling fan that's used for home entertainment units that I can mount in that cabinet. It was like $4. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I have good ventilation in the cabinet. And you'll see what that looks like in the next video when I start to build this thing in and get this wrapped up. So thank you for your comments. I appreciate all your help as always. And our Presto Goat amp is coming to life. All right, folks. We'll see you.